Hello and welcome to the Joy Anime Talk Show. I'm Gareth. Across the screen from me is my good friend Reddy, and we're still exploring the world of Neon Genesis Evangelion. We're on to episodes 7, 8, and 9. So, Freddie, do you want to give me an overview of how you have about episode 7?
Sure. This episode I've got as like an overall feeling. It definitely feels like Shinji's adapted a lot more to his situation.
Yeah.
This episode also shows another side of Misato that means it feels like I've changed my opinion on Misato a bit. I described her as flip-flopping before.
Yeah.
And I think now it's definitely more a case of, I think as you've described it, she's flipping a switch.
Yeah.
It's not that she can't decide what she's wanting to be, it's that she's actively separating different parts of her life, because this part is definitely not you don't flip-flop into this. This was a full-on, I'm putting my foot down, I am going to be the foundations
there's a development of the characters outside of Shinji, who he's the eyes for us, he's the avatar to be in that world, but now we're seeing Misato more as why she's so high up in the chain.
Yeah, why is she a part of Nerve? Because she's not just a woman in the military anymore. It's like, oh, she is a competent military
she's
figure.
willing to go like to the end in some of the episodes. She's like, okay, like let's quickly talk about episode 7 and how we get to Misato. We open with Gendo, and it turns into a political thriller, this episode. There's shady dealings, budget talks, conversations of other countries building EVAs or rivals to the EVA units. And that's the opening. And then we go to Misato's apartment, where she's enjoying a morning pre-work beer.
Yep.
But she's also going to the schools to talk to like classes and provide information, explain the projects and stuff like that. And then we end up at a political conference with, as I've described it, as Misato on tour.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Where essentially everyone... I'm not sure if this is a commentary on sort of social situations, but it feels like that it's all the scientist men in this are sort of sneering at the women. It's like, oh, you're not really the same level as us. I'm like, from our perspective, we're rooting for them because we've not been introduced to these other characters.
Yeah.
It feels like, these men scientists that have turned up are just there to be. Their entire character is rude.
A couple of scenes in the conference as quote-unquote classic 90s sexism at its finest.
Yeah, that's about right.
And again, I think it is trying to explain how a majority of those positions are maybe male over female, how there's a difficult... Like, Misato's resigned to it, because she just spends the whole conference like a bored kid. Whereas
I feel like she's probably had to go through that a while and has got used to it. Yeah.
I think that's how she gets where she gets to. And also there's maybe it's a male-female interjected concept that Retsuko.
Oh yeah, Retsuko.
Gets laughed down because the Evas have, let me just check my note, the power of the human heart.
Oh, they've got emotions. Lovely.
Yeah. Whereas, the men are like, technology, good old, simple, straightforward, nuclear fusion and steel will save the day.
I mean, depending on how you apply it, it certainly could do.
Yeah.
But regardless, moving aside from that, yeah.
So again, we get some little breadcrumbs in the episode. So we get mentions of Germany's built Unit 2, China I believe, is building a Unit 6. Someone
feels
else
like
mentions Unit 8.
Feels like they're doing a sort of we're going on a world tour and we're grabbing a little piece of each country to bring with us to keep it, all inclusive.
We spoke briefly at work about Gundam Wing, and I was explaining to you how the 5 Gundams all have like characterizations of, what do I describe it, of like their culture. So there's like the Sandrock, which is like the desert combat Gundam. I was wanting to say about 10 words at once there. And it's got like, it's the characters, Saudi Prince, it's got like a scarab motif. There's the Chinese Gundam with the like snake dragon arms. And it leads very much into like characteristics and cultural stylizations.
I would have been like, yes, you're a stereotype. Yes, and I play into it.
But they really do. When was Gundam Wing? Is that the 80s? I think
it's another one I've not watched. But
if we do Gundam, it will be a very long series. There is a lot of Gundam.
I hear Witch from Mercury is meant to be very good.
Yes,
but we'll discuss it off camera.
We will. So we have Misato Retsuko viewing the Jet Alone test, and it goes wild. By wild, it walks off.
Yep, it
becomes a nuclear weapon. But it's given how this show started with mechs going berserk and eating angels, this one's just like tum tum tum.
Yeah. I'm just going to power walk this way and just keep walking.
But yeah, I like the bureaucracy that it shows in about a 12-second clip of this has gone wrong and nobody higher up wants to be named, associated in like, it's like, oh, you can't just do this on a phone call. I know it's an emergency. You've got like 20 minutes, but you're going to have to send me a letter, and then I need to send that to someone else, so it's not my fault.
Yeah. Yeah, the scene with the golfing bit I thought was very well, it explains it pretty perfectly. Yeah.
Bureaucracy at its finest.
Like, oh, what? You're experiencing a nuclear catastrophe. Don't interrupt my golfing course, please.
I'm very important. My golf score is of national importance. They fly Shinji in. He does a superhero landing, which must be terrible for the Ava's knees. And I just enjoy how the rescue plan is Misato wears a special hazard suit, and then they just gently carry her in the palms of his hands as he chases after them.
Have you watched One Punch Man?
I've watched the first season.
Yeah, the first season's all you'd need to know. Thinking of the giant with the scientist?
Okay, yeah. Just on his shoulder.
Yes,
Which is interesting, because this episode shows that Misato is literally made of sterner stuff. She slides off the side of the Jet Alone and somehow doesn't break a limb, rip out a shoulder, catching herself. I mean, it's not the only anime with some realism / continuity errors that I have questions for. Looking at you, Delicious and Dungeon. But yeah, the other concept I have is, why didn't they just break its legs?
Given how it was flailing its arms, I imagine it would have just started spinning its arms wildly to carry on moving forward.
I mean, the Eva has a gun. Probably
also, I would argue it's likely it's going to damage the reactor, you could, even though the possibility is ridiculously low,
The classic
it's
anime
there.
knee reactor.
I was more thinking of if a stray
the
bullet.
impact of it falling. Yeah, I understand. And then we get the quintessential like 90s get to the control panel, run in, put in the password. Do you remember the password?
I remember Hope being
It
one
is
of them.
Hope, yes. I know you watch it in the sub, I watch it in the dub, so it's good for us to check this. And yeah, they literally go in and it's got the equivalent of like a broken pipe. Someone's gone in and with a wrench, literally put a wrench in the work. And Misato comments that it wasn't her who overrode the jet alone.
Mm.
And then where do we cut back to? Do you remember?
My notes end there actually. Because I've got it that she mentioned that it had been a setup.
Yeah. So we cut back to Gendo's office, and now there's a lot of the symbology, like the Judaic tree and the markings of like various Christian religions are in his office, like ritualistic symbolization. And we get a little bit of there's a Groundhog Day theme in this episode where we keep cutting to Misato getting ready to take someone to school in a car.
Someone? Who else is it going to be other than Shinji?
Well, anyway. It is Shinji, but there's like it's what I'm trying to translate my note, and there is some interesting expectation versus reality stuff. And I've put here, Shinji is annoyed. People are multifaceted, applying his own rules to everyone, and refusing to accept individuality / personal choice. But he seems to improve, because we talk about Misato and the Toji NPC cameraman are both like, oh, she's great, and this, that, and the other. And he's like, oh, you don't see her at home, you just see this. And they're like, yeah, that's normal. People are different everywhere.
Oh, I got it more that it's a case of they say to him, it's like, yeah, but that means that she's accepted you as family.
Yes, I agree.
You're getting to see, it's, so I was like, I do have in my overall feeling that, yes, it does feel like Shinji is actually starting to connect with Misato as like as a familial connection.
He's starting to actually like grow as a person, and I'm unsure if it's meant to be like he's growing from being a teen to an adult, because there's a big puberty thing throughout the whole of this, or is he actually healing from some of the wounds that we see in like the first 6 episodes? Like, is it helping him understand himself as he processes his trauma and moves on, and then by understanding himself it allows him to understand others, which then allows him to understand himself further? Because he puts a lot of expectation on himself and others, so seeing that growth is interesting. Freddie's like, I'm unsure about this. Garrett's reading so much into this.
Yeah. It's like my notes don't go that deep, I'm afraid.
Okay. I think we're watching it in different ways, which I think is quite interesting, especially when you bring up points, because I can see things I've missed, and I enjoy hearing your process as well.
We're watching them through different lenses. Yeah. So yes.
A little bit like Shinji, seeing that the world is a series of people's processes and how they clash. We get to episode 8, which has one real boring name and one just to the point. Title is also character reveal.
Yep.
So I've got Asuka. How do you say it?
Given that again, I'm reading the subtitles as much as hearing it. I've got it written down as Asuka, which seems to feel like a more Japanese name. And I'm like, she's not meant to be Japanese, but it's
German. Yeah. So I've got Asuka arrives in Japan. Boring name.
Yeah, that's what I've got.
Asuka strikes, which really tells you a lot about her, I think, just in 2 words.
Yep. Yeah, it actually does an awful lot to explain her. Yes.
So, anyway, quickly tell me what you saw in this episode.
So, unfortunately, during this episode and the next episode, I was feeling quite ill when I was watching them. So, my notes, I don't have an overall episode feeling. I just have the notes of what happened. We open with the helicopter ride going to
Boys'
the
Day
UN
out,
fleet,
as I describe it. Yeah.
And they land on it. I think it's the ship Over the Rainbow, which is the UN fleet's flagship.
Yeah.
I believe. You see at this point in my notes, I just have it as a brunette silhouette, which I enjoyed the rhyming with that.
Interesting. I put, I didn't get the boat, which it's meant to be the whole UN fleet, so the naval concept is quite diminished. Mm-hmm. And I put silhouette girl, and then NPC loves a boat / war machine.
I think he loves machinery in general. Yeah.
I get an idea what he does in his spare time. Maybe just me.
So yeah, I've got it introduces a new character who I wasn't. Do you think she's meant to be ginger or brunette?
Interesting. I was reviewing some notes and I did a quick research before we started filming, and I put in the comments. This is a little bit of show trivia. Asuka was meant to be the main character, and they decided, like she has... she's got MC energy.
Yeah.
But they didn't, because the 2 writers who'd worked together previously to Evangelion had literally Asuka twice before. Like,
okay.
It's like, we like strong, powerful, personality-driven women as our heroes, and then one of them was like, "We've done this before." We're like, shit. Anyway, let's have a nervous, skinny boy instead. So, in the anime, she's meant to be a redhead, and then in the manga they make after, she's a brunette, and I get a feeling, reading into the history of some of how Eva was written as it went along kind of vibe, that it was like brunette, redhead, brunette, redhead, redhead, red. She wears a lot of redhead. But that's how we get to Asuka, the second children.
Yeah, which I noticed that Shinji's referred to as the third children. Yes. I'm not sure if Rei has a number, but
Rei is the first children.
Okay, I haven't picked up on that, but yeah, okay, fair enough.
Asuka in the next episode, in the dub, keeps calling her the first children. Like, doesn't use names, just use like numerical affiliations for the characters.
Okay. I suppose it in her mind that must be like a rank thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So the comment in this episode, I think it's this episode and next one, and she's like, "Oh, you're Rei. Your Eva was the prototype, and I've got the production type. So I've got the good one. Oh. You've got the spare parts. Give it a try version."
Wasn't that mentioned to Shinji in this episode?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
She's all about her Eva and like how it's better, and like how the Eva. So Unit 1's the third Eva, technically, somewhat.
There's Evas, there's pilots.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
far as I'm concerned, so far they do a good job of punching up angels.
Yeah, so far. Um,
Yeah,
in
well,
my notes, I've
apart from
got
all the times they've lost, but
yeah.
we'll
So we
ignore those
have
bits.
the silhouette of Asuka, and I've got Asuka reveal, second children, followed shortly by Toji penis reveal. um, and there's a little bit more going back to episodes 4, 5, and 6 for Shinji, as Asuka spends all of her time chewing him out. He's rubbish. He's
Hmm.
inefficient. His Eva's terrible. Um, and we get introduced to there's a little bit of bickering and backbiting, and then we get the official meeting between Shinji, Misato, who meets Asuka and her handler, Mr.
Yep.
Kaji,
Yeah, Mr. Ryoji Kachi.
Ryoji Kaji. Um, and they're almost like a mirror of each other.
Yeah, this is one of the things. So when I had this reveal, it made me feel like Asuka has very much like single child
Yeah,
sort of energy, and it's like she's suddenly been introduced to the idea of other siblings. It's
yeah,
like I am used to being the best. I am used to being the person who gets all the attention. It's like, why are you getting more attention? I'm the person who.
yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of
It's
energy
me.
from her.
I'm the best all the time. Me.
Mm. Um, yeah. At this point, I was okay with Mr. Kachi. He seemed, yeah, like a sort of a mirror to Misato.
Yeah, which is interesting because they cut to a meal and they're playing footsie under the
Yeah,
table.
yeah.
Um, and this is another little part of this episode. Builds up the world further. There's now history beyond the teacher expositionally explaining the second impact, and
Hmm.
no one listens to him. We get, halfway through the meal. I've got Asuka constantly bigs up Eva 2. It's the official Eva
Hmm.
in the dub. And then we get a familiar piece of music, the Angel Attack music, ruining dinner. And I quite enjoy that when they're setting this up and Asuka decides, now I'm going to get the unit 2. We're going to go out, show everyone how it's done. And she's got her official Eva kit bag, complete
Yeah,
with
yeah,
pilot suit, in case of emergencies.
yeah. I didn't plan this attack.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. I can think of several comedy tropes of like, oh, this old thing. Who
Yeah.
knew? Oh, it would be an awful shame. Um, and Misato loves Asuka as well.
Yeah.
Like Asuka's like, Shinji, come with me, get in the Eva. I'll
Hmm.
show you how it's done. Even though you've killed 2 angels
Yeah.
so far, I've got a 0-0-0-0 record, and you've got a
Yeah.
2-0. 2 kills, no deaths.
No deaths, but of quite a few losses.
Yeah,
Like I said, we'll ignore those.
yeah,
Doesn't look good.
yeah. He was carrying the team, but they were still the losing team.
God, those construction workers must be real hard workers. Anyway,
I enjoy as well Asuka's settings for Eva 2 that Shinji
hmm.
calls a small problem. Do you know what that is? Or what I'm alluding to?
No.
Deutsch only.
Oh yeah,
Stop
there was
thinking
yeah.
in Japanese.
No,
Why aren't
I've
you
yeah.
thinking in German?
I do
Everyone
have that
thinks
in my
in
notes.
German.
Yeah, I found that hilarious because I mean this is something I've had a conversation with other people, and I've found I guess everyone's different, but it's like I don't think in words, I don't think in a language. I just sort of there are
Yeah,
ideas that kind of happen.
yeah, that's
So
interesting.
if you were to be like think in a language for me, I'd be like, oh, that slows my thought process down because I've got to be like I've got to translate my thoughts into words.
Yeah. Do you think
Yeah.
in words or pictures?
I would probably say pictures.
Pictures. Yeah, that's what I do. I used to get a lot of stick from some friends where I'd stop for a second and they're like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, I'm doing the thing in my head to work out the words."
Yeah.
So it's like if you ask me where something is in a room, I'll in my head go into the room and walk to the thing and it'd be like, "Oh, it's in the drawer, second drawer down somewhere."
Okay,
That's
yeah.
how my brain works.
Mine works, differently again. This is why I'm like, everyone's different, and it's like, I don't think people. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I had an issue with it, but regardless, we'll move on.
I'm gonna, three little comments that I've got in my notes that are all linked. So Asuka decides to fight the angel, which is manta ray flavor this episode.
I thought it was eel flavored, but
It's
yeah.
quite manta ray-ish to start off with, but I think it does like all of them like second form. I've got ninja robot plus stepping stones equal I'll never financially recover from this. She loves some
We'll ignore the
collateral
bit
damage.
later where they sink 2 battleships to then shoot them.
That's not her. She sinks
I know that's not her, but it's
by
like
just running along.
yeah, it's just the whole thing of like, oh, you had a UN fleet.
Yeah.
You've
And
now got
then
a collection of boats.
my third comment is still the shittiest knife.
I have a thing that it reminded me so much of when she gets her prog knife out.
Yeah.
It's a box cutter. It's just a very upscaled box cutter. It's like, oh, this is very amusing to me. It's just the way it slides out. It's like it's such a box cutter.
Yeah, it's like being at work, isn't it? It's delivery day. You've got your fish knife out, so it's safety first.
For some reason, I don't know if this is like a trope. I've seen quite a few anime where angry women in Japanese schools, or angry girls, I guess, when they get very angry, they then resort to box cutters. So I wasn't sure if that was like, is there a thing with box cutters in Japan?
Is this the birth of the trope? I'm birthing
Maybe
the trope.
It's given that I'm watching this much later than when it came out, and I'm watching anime that have come out sooner. Timelines all mixed up for me. Yeah. Could be.
So we transition from ninja action to fishing for Eva, the tale of Job.
Yep.
Which leads to what you just mentioned, as I've described it, insane plan, nerves time to self-destruct. I want to talk about the reattaching cable quickly as well.
Okay.
So, is it me? I'm going off memory. Does the cable in one scene come off the connection drum, and then later on went, "Oh, we can just fish them back"? I was like, I thought the cable came off the reel.
That must be your imagination. I don't remember that. Maybe there is a scene you'll have to fish for it, in inverted commas.
I will have to hunt for it in the edit.
Yeah. My memory of it was that she jumps off, but it's connected, and then it's like there's a bit where she's just dangling, or they're dangling because they reach the end of the line and they can't disconnect.
Yeah.
And then they then use it later to reel them back in. Literally fishing with an Eva.
Yeah. Like, come on, out you come. And then we get the reveal of why the angel is attacking, which is Mr. Koji was also babysitting someone other than Asuka.
He was, which was referred to as Adam, which I've got it as first stage, but I don't actually ever recall it being referred to as the first stage of. But it's the Human Instrumentality Project. And it's also mentioned that it has reconstituted or reconstructed, regardless means the same thing in the context. It's rebuilt itself.
It has. My last note is Gendo is baby snatcher, and he's got Adam, which is in like a pupae
in a briefcase.
Storm. Yeah, in a briefcase. Baby in a briefcase. Classic trope.
One thing I very much enjoyed from this episode was actually seeing the city, the underwater city, when they were fishing. Because, you'd heard in the exposition that sea levels had risen countries had, flooded, and
that
a
was
lot
a
of
nice
cities had to be
touch.
evacuated. And then it's like, here's a city that's underwater. Here's, it's a backdrop, but
Yeah.
it's something that further backs it
We
up.
allow us to continue our story via background storytelling, which is good. And then we move on to episode 9, which has the English name, I think, is better than the Japanese name. So the English name is, do you want to do it, Freddie? You got it?
I can do it, yep. It's mind, matching, movement.
And the direct translation from Japanese calls this episode, both of you dance like you want to win, which maybe this is when Dance Dance Revolution was starting to take off in the late 90s. And I've got my two opening. This episode, stuff happens but doesn't happen. It's more like a show rather. So we've gone mecha, psychological drama, mecha, political intrigue. There's like a slice of life element in this episode.
Yeah.
I do wonder the way the episode begins because all the boys at school are talking about Asuka, and I wonder.
First note for this episode is that the new girl, Asuka, is the school crush.
Yeah. I put, is she being gaijin hunted? And boys have asking NPC guy for photos of her. So he must be raking in on the side, like he's got that side hustle set up.
I mean, there's a bit where he's going through the pictures, and there's pictures where he's taking pictures of the girls changing. I'm like,
yeah.
If he's been doing this before, like,
he's got
the
so police need to know about him, and he's like, I am normal, I can be trusted, honest. Do not trust him.
No, do not.
In the dub, there's a line when all the boys are talking about Asuka. I think cameraman is like, why is everyone into her? Ray is clearly the good-looking one. That might be a dub thing. But in the dub, someone says the phrase, maybe only weirdos get chosen as Eva pilots.
Yeah, I remember
so there's
reading
like,
that bit.
yeah.
And my thought was, is it that weirdos get chosen, or is it the job makes them into weirdos?
Yeah. I think.
Is it the stress that it
chicken
forces
or
them
egg?
to...
Chicken or egg?
Yeah.
Pick your methodology.
Answer to that is always egg. Dinosaurs had eggs. Chickens weren't around during the dinosaurs.
Very true. We cut. Do you know what the next scene is? We cut to. It involves is it a lift?
Well, there's a whole bunch of. No, I don't have that in my notes. I have that. Yeah, Asuka's the school crush, and then I made a point that she. Now we discussed this off camera.
Yeah.
Where there's a point where Asuka is stood on top of, I think it's like a flower bed corner of like the staircase, talking to Ray, and I made the sort of distinction between Asuka being this outwards, almost social character. She wants to be fully social, whereas Ray's like not the exact opposite, but she's the other side of a coin. She's like, I don't care about the social side of it. I just want to be me. And yeah, like the whole character feels like it's a kind of mirror to Ray. It's not a complete mirror, but it's this scene in particular draws that mirroring.
I can see that. So we have in the previous episode, I see Asuka as the reverse Shinji, and we've spoken before about Shinji and Ray, that they maybe get on because they can see each other in the other. And Asuka is completely like the opposite of both of them. I
feel like there's like the distinction. Shinji is the family dynamic mirror of Asuka.
Yes.
And Ray is the sort of personality mirror. Rei is the personality mirror to Asuka. So there is like this. They're all different and similar in their own ways.
Yeah. So we cut to Misato's ex, Mr. Ryoji Kashi, and he hates being interrupted by the seventh angel that attacks. And when this happens, my next note is Asuka is the star, wants all the glory. And she tells Shinji to get back, I've got this. And something slightly... So, I want to question, where did Asuka get the spear from? Because that's her weapon in this.
Shinji has a gun.
And he's long range. He's the ranger class. Asuka fighter class. Uses the spear. She's like, I've done it, boys. I've won them. I've won the game.
Yep. I did it.
What happens?
It split in two, and it became two.
Two angels, which become known as Alpha and Bravo. In mine, is it the same in the Japanese?
Did make a note of what they were called. One was red, one was blue.
Yep, that's important.
That does actually sort of mirror the...
I do enjoy before it splits, like the little angel face just moves to another part of its body and gives Asuka like a sad look before being like, anyway, here's two.
The sort of the mental note I made was the face starts off as this red-blue yin-yang.
Yeah. And
then it sort of switches to just a full-on grey when it sort of splits into two, so it's... Yeah.
Like the shell, yeah. And then they get their asses kicked.
Yeah, I enjoyed the scene where you can see
just the legs.
Them, it's like they've been thrown, and they've landed perfectly in the comedic style of everything. Everything sort of up to sort of the knees is buried.
Yeah.
And then you've just got the legs just poking out perfectly vertical.
Yeah, it's great. Apparently, it's the most embarrassing defeat Nerve have ever suffered.
We didn't get to see it. I am upset.
And the next thing that we get is Asuka's moving with Misato and telling Shinji, you've been fired, you've been kicked out. It's like, no one needs your shoe. I'm the important one.
Yep. They then have, I guess it's Asuka's. Oh, it's the class president, isn't it? Along with NPC cameraman and
Toji
coming along, and it's like, oh, why are you here? Well, why are you here? Oh, I'm going to. And then they end up all at the same door. It's like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I love the fact.
Shout outs to DHL making it into the episode.
I just love that the class president said, "Oh, it's 2/3 of the idiot trio are here." I very much enjoyed that, and I very much also felt like that slandered Shinji to the nth degree.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Misato comes back, explains the living arrangements, and how Mr. Koji has a plan, which involves a cassette.
Yeah, we've seen one of those already, and we'll see it again.
Welcome to 2015.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get the great the choreography of Asuka and Shinji, and because she wants to be the leader so bad, it's actually her that's hindering the progress.
Yeah, we'll see that when Rei comes in, because Rei takes over, because they're doing like a Dance Revolution. Yeah. I thought at first it might have been like a is it Twisted?
Twister.
Yeah, Twister. That's the one. I thought it was kind of like that at first. I'm like, oh no, it's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because Asuka keeps on accusing Shinji of he's the one slowing me down. He's not keeping up with me, and then it's like, okay, Asuka, swap with Rei, and then she does, and they succeed. They do really well.
First try.
Yeah.
Go. Done.
And she gets in a huff and storms out.
Yeah. this is
And it's
going
like,
to. So Asuka's personality, especially when she's this way, she's like a clown. Like, she's purposely forcing the situations, and she's almost like the comedy relief in places.
I wonder if it's that she's, again, we might discuss this, that she's created this artificial persona because
Yes.
there's a big difference between how she acts with Shinji and everyone in private to how she acts at school. Big difference.
Yes.
So it feels like, yeah, her, and there's a scene later when she's sleeping that further shows that it's like it's all built up, it's all artificial.
Yeah. So she's want to be
And
adult, and in the sleeping section that you mentioned, where Shinji comes to life again, he thinks about kissing her,
oh yeah, he
and
gets a real heavy blush.
before he does, she says in the dub, "Mummy."
She says that in
She
the
wants
sub
a
as well.
mum.
Yes,
She
yeah,
wants protection. She wants to feel safe. She's still a
mm,
child, but she needs
yeah,
everyone to think she's the big bad
mm,
boss girl.
yeah. So I got that she's this. Yeah, she's created this artificial construct, and I feel like when it's threatened and it starts to sort of collapse, she might
Yeah.
sort of fall into that, as you said, that sort of clown thing
Yeah.
as a fallback because it then
Yeah.
doesn't stop her
She's all
completely
ego.
collapsing. Yeah, she collapses to a like a safe place, but it's not her
I
like
could get it.
innermost
Yeah. It's all ego.
personality.
It's a shield to protect her from the politics outside, but the little child, which is the id for Freudian fans in the room. So the ego is the barrier that she builds, and what happens is when her ego is challenged and the superstructure, the superego, like other people's opinions, school, work, come through and attack the scared child, she just doubles down on the ego. She doesn't go, oh, maybe I need to think about this. It's like, I must be bigger, louder, and force more confidence through the scenario.
Okay.
That's how it reads.
Yeah, I took it as a slightly different sort of, I guess, reaction. But yes,
if anyone wants, I can do the Freudian id, ego, superego analysis on all the pilots. Let me know. But we get to the Battle of Tokyo 3. And there's two lines straight at the beginning after we've had the training montage. They've got there. They're getting bad scores, okay scores, nailing the choreography. I quite like the little 90s dance suits they wear when they open the door. I can't remember if it's Misato or Asuka, but I've got the quote. It's balls to the wall time. You've got 62 seconds to win. And then we are greeted with this glorious choreography. Synchronized bat flips. You attack. Cover me with the gun. I retreat. You go in. Is there classical music playing as well, I think? Do they really lean into that whole...
I think there was, yeah. Because it wasn't focusing... I don't recall being able to hear like the sounds of,
combat.
Two giant Evas doing a backflip. It's like, oh, it's just...
I mean, let's be honest. There. One thing we've learned in 2 episodes is Asuka cares nothing for your boats, your buildings, personal safety. I will do stuff to look cool as... regardless.
Yep.
And in that 62 seconds, we win. There's a slight noticed issue with their victory pose.
Their victory pose was ending up in a crater in the ground, toppled over each other. Yeah.
And then Shinji gets the phone call, and they have the public couples argument. It's like, you were trying to kiss me! You were asleep! Shinji, just quickly, that's not a defense. That's a crime. But you were sleeping. That does not make it cool. It makes it not cool. The furthest from cool. Please stop. This is.
It did make me wonder that if she was awake during that, was she saying "mummy" consciously? Was she saying that as like I wonder how he's going to react to this, or is it like, oh, she was on the verge of being asleep,
Maybe
but she
that's
happens
what
to
she
remember
wanted him to call her.
well, we'll see.
She's got the energy, seemingly. So we get a win. We've got more relationships to talk about. Anything else before we sign off?
One thing I would like to mention. Yeah. Well, there are two things, but the main thing I'd like to mention is, so there's a bit where Asuka is, I believe, having a rant. Specifically, it's when just after she's sort of been told by Misato that she's having to live with Shinji.
Yeah.
And she's having a rant about like how they sleep in Japan, like because they have to sleep in futons
on the floor. Yeah.
On the floor. And I was thinking, it doesn't feel, as somebody who lives in Europe outside of Japan, doesn't feel like a genuine thing that you come up with. It feels like, I don't know a word for this, but it's like what Japan thinks other countries think about them. Yeah. So it's like the Japanese are going, so if we had a German person, what would they think of our sleeping, like how we sleep? It's like
a satire.
It's
they're trying to create a outsider to say things they want to say, or that they want to comment on about I suppose it's tropes versus tropes.
Yeah, but it just doesn't feel like a genuine thing that somebody would come up with.
The doors thing as well. Don't you believe in locks? Doesn't even stay shut.
Yeah, things like that. That I'm like, when you're in another country, I guess, because having been to Japan, you just kind of go, they do things differently. I guess I'll adapt.
When in Rome, do as the Romans.
Exactly. As opposed to it being like, you come over, well, given they have their history with America, it might actually be a case of they just expect foreigners to come over here and go, do it this way.
Perhaps.
Again, that goes into sort of the social historic side of things. Anyway, that's going a bit too deep than what I was wanting to cover. The other thing, I was really hoping when Shinji was trying to sleep, he was listening to his, classic cassettes.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was going, because the numbers on it, I wasn't sure if the time was going to make a difference. Okay. I made a note, and then I was sad that there wasn't like a hidden thing with the numbers.
Maybe it was a little bit early for that, and like staying behind the episode for like when the next Marvel comes out, who's in it? That it's maybe a little bit early for those, but there's probably Easter eggs to the other things that they made.
Well, yeah, the numbers I got where he was at 25007602.
Maybe someone's out there with the Neon Genesis Evangelion cipher, and they'll drop something in the comments on YouTube for us.
Maybe, but I hoped there was going to. Well, maybe there is something there, but I'll see.
We'll have a research and talk about it next time.
Yeah.
So
that was everything I'd want to say.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you for joining us on episode 3. Thank you, Freddie, for your time. We'll see you next time.
Pleasure as always.
See you later.
Bye-bye.